So this is an excerpt from a short story I just wrote, and all puns are intended. You might be wondering what an African lion is doing on a chicken farm in Modesto, California, with a 48-year-old peg-legged widow for a companion. Most people do. I can hear it in the hushed whispers that precede me when I arrive to town for my weekly supply run. I can see it in their eyes as they watch the butcher's assistants load my truck with 250 pounds of ground beef. They think I don't notice how they cringe at my wooden leg as it scrapes against the floor, how it makes my whole body heave like a boat in a heavy gale. I once overheard a little boy ask his mom if I was a witch while I waited in line at the post office. She quickly hushed him and apologized, but I could see the question in her face. I have to drive into town to pick up my mail from the post office because the mailman refuses to deliver to the farm. No way in hell he's going to risk getting mauled by a lion, he tells me. Dogs are bad enough. I tell him I understand, of course, no problem, but inside I'm laughing. Tiberius doesn't have teeth anymore, and even if he did, his hips are so crooked with age that he couldn't pounce if he tried. Tibby, we're just a couple of harmless old gimps, huh? I say to him, scratching him behind his ears while we sit out on the porch. If they only knew. He closes his eyes and purrs in assent, harmless as a 400-pound kitten. I met Tiberius and my husband on the same day 30 years ago. Cupid must have had double vision that day because I fell in love twice over, with both man and beast. It was October 15th, 1923, at the height of a particularly brutal Indian summer. The trees burned with the reds of autumn while our bodies sizzled with the heat from nature's broiler. I was seeking refuge from the sun in the shady branches of the dogwood behind our house, wearing nothing but my slip and stockings. From my vantage point, I caught sight of my sister Bernice hurrying my way, her usual prim composure abandoned to some unknown excitement. "Aggie," she called up to me, shielding her face from the sun with her hand. "Aggie, hurry down and make yourself decent. The circus is in town." I looked at her, saw the firm plant of her right foot, right hip cocked with equal tenacity, hand stuffed stubbornly into armpits. I couldn't see her eyes, but I knew she was glaring at me. I sighed, folded down the page in my book to mark my place, and jumped down. When Bernie set her arms at akimbo, there was no arguing with her. The tents had been set up in the Henderson's fallow field, transforming it from so much mud and dust into a vibrant spectacle of color. We pressed in close to our fellow spectators, trying to catch a glimpse of the geek's horrifying blood sport and the dancing bear's fancy footwork. The scents of candy floss and onion-flavored sweat caught in our throats. Inside the red and yellow pinwheel of the big top, Bernie and I craned our necks stiff to follow the dainty maneuvers of the tightrope walker. We laughed our bellies sore at the somersaulting bumbles of the clowns. In between acts, a dramatic drum roll, the ringmaster's booming tenor, and my sister squeezing my arm in anticipation of the next daring do. "And now, ladies and gents, boys and girls, sinners and saints, brace yourselves for a truly terrifying treat, a sight that will surely test the fortitude of even the most stalwart amongst you." The ringmaster paused and raised a challenging eyebrow as his eyes scanned the tent for any doubting Thomases. We all held our breath. The ringmaster smiled and winked, inviting us into his conspiracy. "The origins of our next act are cloaked in mystery. Some claim him to be the illegitimate offspring of a gypsy farrier and a Maharaja's daughter. Others say he was raised by wolves in the Macedonian wilderness. I personally have heard whispered tales claiming his gift to be a mark of the lineage of Daniel. Wherever he came from, wherever he learned his talent, this man's power over the animal kingdom is unparalleled. He speaks the language of the beasts with a linguist's precision, soothing the most savage of God's predators with his seductive purrs." Bernie's grip tightened on my arm. "Now, my dear friends, without further ado, I give you Mordecai the Beastmaster." A flap at the back of the tent was flung open, and a muscular man stepped out onto center stage, sparkling in red and gold and sporting a jeweled turban on top of his dark-maned head. His whip cracked like lightning, and all of us spectators flinched as if struck. A low rumble filled the tent like approaching thunder, and then, amidst gasps of surprise, a pride of lions burst through the tent entrance in single file, circling around the ring and closing in on Mordecai's glittering figure. Another whip crack, another collective jolt through the crowd, and the lions stopped and bent low in an almost courtly bow. Then silence, surprise, and an eruption of applause. Mordecai bowed briefly, then held up his hand. We instantly fell silent, all falling under the same tamer's spell. With another crack of his whip, a sweeping wave of his arm, and the barking of some strange, unfamiliar words, Mordecai herded his pride into groups of two, a strangely homogeneous Noah's Ark. We watched as he led each pair through a series of tricks that would be impressive even for barnyard cats, but were mystifying in these large killers. He shook paws with them, coaxed them to balance on platforms, encouraged them with his strange language and piercing gaze to go against their nature, mold it to his will. For the finale, he welcomed one lion to come to center stage. Tiberius strode up to him, matching his bravado with a cool power. They locked eyes for a minute, then Mordecai collapsed to his knees in front of Tiberius. Tiberius stepped forward until they were almost nose to nose. I heard Bernie gasp and shrink against me. She buried her face in my shoulder. I can't look. I sat silent, transfixed, watching Mordecai's whispering lips, the twitch of Tiberius's ears. Mordecai inched his body around slowly until his back was facing Tiberius. His lips were still moving in an audible chant. He snapped his fingers with nearly the force of his whip. Tiberius opened his jaws wide. With another snap, Mordecai bent backwards, lowering his head slowly into the open jaws of the animal. Women, and even some men, squealed in terror. Bernie plugged her ears, buried herself deeper into me. I couldn't turn away. I studied the two figures. I watched the flutter of Mordecai's pulse in his throat, watched the twitch of Tiberius's whiskers. Their eyes glittered with mirroring emotions, the same strength, the same vulnerability. I watched with an odd mixture of anxiety and calm as the jagged cage of Tiberius's jaws tightened slowly over Mordecai's head. I was spellbound. I was charmed. I was intoxicated by the danger of these creatures. I was in love. Thank you.